Chapter 2. Opposition. If a pony uses the Death Note, a god of death usually appears in front of him or her within 39 days after the first name is written. "Sister!" There was a grunt from someone beneath the royal sheets, but no other response. Princess Luna took another step into her sister's bedchamber, turning on lights as she went. "Sister, I'm re-establishing the Night Court." "Go away, Luna," Princess Celestia grunted, turning away and pulling the sheets fully over her head. "It's late." "It's not late. I've only just raised the—" Luna trailed off as the smell washed over her. "Tia, you've been drinking!" There was a long, uncomfortable pause while the Solar Princess considered her response. "No?" "Celestia," Luna sighed. "We don't have time for this. Ponies are dying. The death toll is currently in the hundreds and rising every day. Our subjects are scared. They need a strong ruler who can make things right. Some pony to look up to. You can't do this to yourself when Equestria needs you." "I'm not a queen." "What?" Celestia threw the covers off her and turned to face her sister. Her normally flawless mane was disheveled and her eyes were red and puffy from tears and lack of sleep. "I'm not a queen," she said quietly. "I promised I wouldn't be. Queens rule over their subjects. Queens think they're better than every pony else. A princess can still be one of them," she sniffed. "Tia," Luna stepped forward and nuzzled her sister comfortingly. "You're the best princess." Celestia looked down. "I'm not the princess." Suddenly she wrapped her forelegs around her sister in a massive hug and started bawling. "I'm terrible!" Luna struggled to stand as the much larger alicorn threatened to crush her. "Tia, you're drunk! Go back to sleep!" I try so hard," the Solar Princess wailed. "I try to set a good example. I go to parties, and I call every pony by name, and I don't hurt them like bad rulers do. But my little ponies keep killing each other." She sobbed on her sister's shoulder. "It's not fair." "It's okay, sis." Luna was finally able to roll Celestia off her and tuck her back into bed. "I'm going to get the Night Court together, and we'll figure this out. You'll see. You'll like this. I was even able to contact El. If any pony can make things better, he can." Celestia's tears started to dry up. "That's nice," she murmured. "My little detective. Just like old times." "Get some sleep. I'll talk to you in the morning." Luna turned out the lights and started towards the door. "Luna?" "Yes, Tia?" "Have you heard any word from the doctor?" Luna paused before answering. "No, Tia, nothing." "I see," the alicorn sighed. "You foolish boy," she mumbled. "I knew this day would come." Luna closed the door, and the Solar Princess drifted into restless sleep. "No, no, no!" Twilight shouted, pounding her head against the desk in frustration. "It can't be! It makes no sense!" She whirled around to glare at the Death Note accusingly. "How can you not be magical?" she yelled at the killer notebook. "You have to be! There's no other explanation for what you can do!" And yet, there it was, entirely unenchanted. The mystery of how and why the Death Note worked both fascinated and infuriated Twilight. She'd been certain at first that the book was an artifact that tapped into the latent magical energies of all ponies in order to stop their hearts. Time and time again, however, the tests she'd run on the notebook had come back negative. She'd put every part of it under analysis, from the paper, to the cover, to the ink on the page, and even the glue binding it together. But even while actively giving ponies heart attacks, there wasn't a drop of magic in the whole thing. Despite constantly reminding herself never to look a gift horse in the mouth, Twilight's frustration grew with every test she performed. What was this book? How could it do the things it did? Perhaps most importantly, where had it come from? This was the question that had kept her up these past few nights. Twilight could cope with not knowing how things worked. She'd learned to accept Pinkie Pie's twitches, Pinkie Pie's teleporting, Pinkie Pie's... well, actually most things Pinkie Pie did defy an explanation. If she could live with her, in time she'd adjust to a non-magical notebook that made no sense. But such a thing hadn't just sprung out of nowhere. Some pony had made it. Some pony with unbelievable power. No sane pony would just throw away that kind of power. Were they out there somewhere, looking for the book? Did they know she had it? If not, what would happen to her when they found out? No point worrying about things you can't avoid, Twilight muttered to herself, half-heartedly. She put the DeathNote back in its secret drawer and turned out the light. For Moondancer, she reminded herself. Her fears changed nothing. Even if there was a pony with power over life and death out there looking out for her, she still had a responsibility to rid Equestria of crime. She kept this thought in her mind as she climbed into bed. I am Kira, was her final thought as she closed her eyes. I am justice. At exactly midnight, the night court gathered. Close to 100 ponies filed into the Lunar Tower's main audience chamber. Unlike Celestia's grand hall, this room was shaped like an atrium, rows of seats at different levels looking down on a raised platform at the far end. A brown pony with a lightbulb cutie mark stood on the corner of the stage, setting up a projector. The ponies who filed into the room were yawning and sipping coffee, many of them still in their bedclothes. Perhaps without noticing, they'd separated out into 3 groups: unicorns on the right, Pegasi on the left, and earth ponies in the middle. From her position in the shadows, Luna smiled and shook her head. Even after 1,000 years, old pony habits never really went away. There was a flurry of bows and salutes as Princess Luna entered onto the main stage. "Fillies and gentle colts," she announced. "The night court is now in session." There was a general mumble of assent, and every pony sat down. "I apologize for the late hour, but, tradition." Luna blushed. "Since time is of the essence, and most of you are unused to keeping these hours, I'd like to skip the formalities and jump straight into the main issue. Are there any objections?" Unsurprisingly, there were no objections. "Great. Now we're here to discuss Kira." She nodded to the pony with the projector. He pushed a button, and the word Kira appeared on the wall behind her. 1 week ago, ponies Equestria-wide began dying very suddenly. The numbers started small, but have since risen to close to 100 a day. The cause of death remains unknown, but popular opinion has attributed the killings to an unknown entity called Kira. So far, the deaths have been exclusive to former or known criminals. I would like to take the opportunity to remind the court, Luna narrowed her eyes, that killing a pony is an act of murder, regardless of that pony's past actions. My sister was very clear on this. No pony ever has the right to kill another. Let's focus on that. She cast a stern glance around the room. Every pony was staring at her with rapt attention, which pleased her. It reminded her of the old days, back when she'd been just as respected as her older sister. In the wild times, when it hadn't been safe to sleep, Equestria needed a ruler of the night. "I now call upon the Canterlot Health Department. What have you discovered?" A pure white earth pony near the front of the room stood and bowed to the princess. A large white coat covered his cutie mark. "Red Cross, Your Majesty, acting head of the Canterlot Health Department." He turned to address the rest of the room. "Several experts have studied the bodies of the ponies killed by Kira. In every case, the cause of death was identified as a heart attack." There were a few murmurs of confusion from the rest of the group. "For those of you unfamiliar with the term, a heart attack is an affliction where a tear or blockage in a major artery stops blood flow to the heart. Similar afflictions are occasionally seen, but it is virtually unheard of in ponies. However, in all cases, there was no damage to the heart or the surrounding tissues. They simply stopped." He paused to let this sink in. There were no signs of toxins or parasites in the body, apart from a few who had consumed various street drugs before death. It is not caused by a virus, bacteria, or any known poison that we can detect. While we haven't exhausted every option, at this point it seems most likely that the attacks are magical in nature." He bowed again and sat down, through some polite hoof-stomping. "Excellent work, Red Cross." Luna smiled kindly. The Earth pony blushed and looked away. If you find anything else, be sure to let us know. Now, I have also contacted several magical organizations to discuss the possibility of a magical heart attack. Who represents them? There was some discussion from the unicorn section of the audience before a midnight blue pony stood up and bowed towards the stage. Spell Nexus, he said humbly, headmaster of Princess Celestia's School for Gifted Unicorns. I have been in conference with many other experts in all schools of magic. While spells for causing death do exist, there is no known curse in any culture that is said to kill in this manner. None that can take effect without contact with the victim. In several cases, the only information Kira would have had access to were a name and a face. The unicorn looked around nervously, and Luna realized he was frightened. Most branches of magic were thought to be close to being fully comprehended, but here he was, in the middle of something that was not only dangerous, but completely alien to him. Currently, we are researching ancient Zabrakian curses, many of which are not fully understood. It is possible that some of them may be used to harm others from a distance. However, these magics generally require complex and time-consuming ceremonies to perform, as well as a body part or personal effect of the intended victim. Unless we find an exception to this rule, I am not hopeful that we will find our answers there. Thank you, Spell. Spell Nexus bowed again and sat down. Is there any pony else who wishes to speak? Stunned silence. Very well. I will turn the floor over to our final speaker. Who represents L? Some ponies gasped at the name, while others stared in confusion. From the side of the room, a pony in a hooded cloak and saddlebags rose and walked towards the stage. The material was enchanted, and well. From every angle it cast dark shadows over the wearer's face, hiding their true colors. The shape and bulk of the fabric made it impossible to tell whether the pony beneath was male or female, or an earth pony, Pegasus, or unicorn. The sight made Luna smile. Sideline, she whispered, as the mysterious pony stepped onto the stage. I know it's a new pony under the hood, but it's nice to see you again. The cloaked figure said nothing. Luna faced her stunned audience. Fillies and gentle colts, this is Sideline, L's personal representative. All communication between us and L will take place through her. Sideline bowed slightly. From her saddlebags she took a small box, which she unfolded into a tripod, and placed into the middle of the stage. A recording crystal was set into the front of the box, and a small stratoscreen on the top. Sideline then took a place next to the projectionist pony, pulling a sheet of slides from her other bag. The word Kira disappeared from the back wall, and was replaced with a highly stylized letter L.
Greetings, everybody.
The voice boomed over the auditorium, seeming to come from everywhere at once. It was highly distorted and echoed strangely throughout the huge room, making it impossible to identify.
I am L. I apologize for being able only to send you my voice. I'm sure a face, even a false one, would be more comforting in this time of need. Unfortunately, a full visual transmission carries enough information to be traced, and I cannot allow that to happen.
The more tech-savvy ponies in the audience recognized the lie, but kept silent. Clearly L had his reasons for remaining hidden.
I've been monitoring your discussion, and I agree with your conclusions. The method by which Kira murders is unknown to us. Unless new information arises, it is unlikely that we will be able to track him down in this way.
This sentence caused a stir, but Elle ignored it.
If we are to stop these murders, we must be more direct with our approach. We must find Kira.
This caused an uproar, some ponies laughing, others shouting angrily. Luna cast her eyes over the crowd for a face she recognized. Captain Strawbolt, she called. Do you disagree with Elle's statement? The captain of the city guard rose, his imposing form silencing those around him. Elle, you speak of Kira as though it were an individual. We do not know if Kira is a group or an organization, or an entirely alien threat. How could such a massive attack be carried out by one pony?
Thank you for your question, Captain. Sideline, slide 1.
The hooded pony drew out another slide, and the giant letter L was replaced with a complex chart and list of times.
These are the dates and times of death for all Kira's victims. Aside from the large clusters in the late evenings, there at first appears to be no pattern. However, on the third day after the killing started, deaths began to occur at all hours of the day. If we compile the data for the deaths throughout the day, over the past week, we see this. Slide 2.
The image changed to a slightly different graph, with certain sections highlighted in green.
As you can see, the deaths are spread out throughout the day to appear random, but without exception, they never occur during standard meal times. After the group killings late at night, the murders stop completely before resuming the following morning. This tells us that Kira functions on equestrian time and needs to eat and sleep, meaning he is not an otherworldly or supernatural entity. Our second observation pertains to the feasibility of keeping a larger organization secret. If the magic were involved, it would require a large number of ponies. Hiding their activities would be near impossible. This schedule would require them to spend most of their day in isolation, something that is easy for one pony, but difficult for a group to pull off without arousing suspicion. Slide 3.
The chart disappeared and was replaced with a much shorter list of dates.
These are the times of death for criminals shown live on crystal vision. In each case, where somebody was caught in the act of committing a crime, they were killed within minutes of the announcement. A group of killers would take longer to contact one another, while an individual was able to act right away. You will also note that only half of all the crimes reported live end in death. An organized group would keep watch on the news at all times, but a single killer can't spend all day glued to the starter screen.
Elle paused.
I have more, but anything beyond that point is just pure speculation. We have only 1 week's worth of data to work with after all. However, I have no reason to believe Kira will not continue following existing trends.
Strawbolt gradually became aware that his mouth was open. He closed it, trying his best not to look impressed. How had this so-called detective managed to pull together so much information so quickly? He must have been working on this chart since the murders started. But no, there were times of death from just a few hours ago. The captain cleared his throat. "You're making a lot of assumptions here, Elle," he said before sitting down.
That is correct,
Elle admitted.
which is why I intend to test these assumptions at the earliest possible opportunity. Incidentally,
He added after a moment's thought.
I believe Kira may be in Ponyville.
There was a general cry of, "What? Why?" from the collected ponies.
Just a hunch.
Elle answered the group.
It may come to nothing. I intend to test the theory as well. Who here represents Ponyville's police force?
A young sky-blue unicorn stood up from her place at the back of the room and made her way forwards. Her cutie mark was shaped like an hourglass, and her hair was striped in 2 different shades of blue. "Romana, representing the Ponyville police force," she said, bowing to Luna. "Such as it is. The crime rate in Ponyville has never been high enough to warrant a full police force. So, aside from myself, all our officers are, volunteers." From the speaker there was a sound like rustling paper.
Ah, Romana. A decent record under the circumstances.
Romana blinked. Thank you?"
Just what it says on the sheet. Do you have an alias?
"In Ponyville, sometimes I'm known as Colgate."
I suggest you adopt that name. You will go to Ponyville immediately and assemble the finest volunteer police force available to you. If my efforts tomorrow prove successful, I will contact you again.
Captain Bolt leapt to his hose.
"This is unacceptable," he roared. "A team of ponies pulled off the streets? That's insulting! Give the word and I can have 10 of my best men there within the hour!"
That won't be necessary, Captain.
Elle's unceasingly calm voice only served to infuriate the captain further.
Subtlety will be key in our investigation. There is no point sending in the troops and causing a fuss where we don't have to. Lady Luna, I understand you have a team of long-distance teleporters in your tower.
Luna seemed surprised by the question. Yes, I mean, they're still in training, but yes, they're here."
Excellent. Colgate, you will travel via teleportation to Ponyville immediately. Good luck.
The newly dubbed Colgate smiled shyly. "Thank you, Elle," she said. "I mean, good luck to you too, but, why the teleporters? A Pegasus chariot would be nearly as fast." And they've been, tested?
2 reasons. Firstly, time is of the essence. Unless we can prove otherwise, we must assume that every second counts.
There was a pause.
Secondly, because I heard a rumor that distance teleportation gives you 2 heads, I want to see if it's true. Dismissed.
With that, the little box folded up into itself and fell to the stage, where it was retrieved by Sideline. Luna stared at the spot where Elle's voice had come from, apparently just as shocked as every pony else. I suppose this means the night court has concluded. The little princess looked around nervously. Unless, of course, any pony has anything they want to say? Colgate slipped out the door amid a sea of angry voices. 20 minutes later, a loud pop echoed throughout Ponyville. Colgate stumbled slightly as she landed in the main square, a little dizzy from the trip. She sat down and frantically touched her cheeks, her mane, her neck. Yep, still one head. She shook her head and trotted towards the old police station. If she worked quickly, she might be able to get a couple of hours' sleep in before the sun rose. The noise of her arrival had woken up most of Ponyville. Most simply startled awake, rolled over, and fell back asleep. A few got up to check for emergencies, finding nothing and leaving them tired and cranky the following morning. When Twilight Sparkle woke up, she discovered a grinning demon hovering over her bed. Understandably, she screamed.
Whoa, shh,
whispered the demon, covering Twilight's mouth with a deformed hoof. She stared in horror at the appendage, which somehow seemed to end in both a hoof and a set of claws.
I'm not going to hurt you.
They stared at each other for a few seconds.
If I let you go, are you going to scream again?
Twilight nodded.
Oh.
It scratched his chin with the other hoof.
If I tell you who I am, do you promise not to scream when I let you go?
That would depend on who you are, Twilight thought, but nodded anyway.
My name is Byuk. I am one of the Shinigami, what you would call a god of death. I own the Death Note.
He took his hoof away from Twilight's mouth. She stared at the god, then at her desk, then back at him. Then she screamed.
Oh, for...
Byuk rolled his eyes and floated away, hovering through the air without moving his wings. Twilight? There was a loud pounding at the door. Twilight, are you okay? A young dragon's voice called out. Twilight stopped screaming. Spike sounded scared. She stared wide-eyed at Byuk, who just shrugged. Getting a better look at him only made him more terrifying. He was shaped roughly like a large Pegasus pony, but wrong. His legs were far too long and bent at strange angles to the rest of his body, while his wings were far too short and leathery. His coat and mane were pitch black, but instead of flowing downwards, the hair stood up in thick, tufty spines. His face was plastered unevenly across a misshapen skull, resulting in a mouth which stretched improbably wide from ear to ear, and such huge yellow eyes. He gave what might have been a warm smile, showing at least 2 rows of wickedly sharp teeth. "I'm sorry, Spike," Twilight called, her voice trembling. I was just having a bad dream. I'm sorry I woke you." Spike hesitated at the door. "You're sure you're okay, Twilight?" "I'm fine, Spike. Go back to bed." She waited for the little dragon's footsteps to vanish up the stairs before speaking again. "Are you going to kill me?"
Byuk laughed, a loud, throaty chuckle that echoed down the length of his body. "Ha! Kill you? Why would I kill you? This is the most fun I've had in decades!"
"Huh?"
"I love Equestria. So many lights, so many interesting ponies, and the food. Oh, the food."
"So you're not mad that I took your book?"
"Mad?" The god of death shook his head. "No, of course not. I dropped it. You found it. Finders keepers. It's yours now."
"Okay, wait, so you're just..." Twilight sat up and took a deep breath. She focused Björk with a more serious look. What are you exactly? Why are you here? Björk settled down on the desk and mimicked Twilight's expression. As he moved, the unicorn's eyes fell to his sides. His left flank bore a cutie mark of a black rectangle, barely visible atop his dark flesh. But the right side was enigmatically blank.
I come from a place called the Shinigami Realm, he said. It is a place between heaven and hell, overlooking all worlds. It is a place of death. From birth, every god of death is given a death note from the Shinigami King. We look down into the world below us and see the lives of things go by. If we write down the name of a living being in a death note, their life ends, and their remaining lifespan is added to ours. So long as we don't get lazy, we can just extend our lives indefinitely and live forever.
That's horrible, Twilight shuddered. Why would such a place even exist?
Björk shrugged. I never asked. Why does your world exist? Why does any?
Seeing that the unicorn had no answer, he continued.
The problem with eternal life, you see, is finding ways to keep yourself occupied. Say I write the name of an old lady in the death note with just 6 more months to live. That alone gives me a whole 6 months when I don't really have anything to do. 6 months of boredom. Nothing grows in the Shinigami realm. There are no animals, no buildings, no food or water. Nothing exists there but us, and the dust of those who came before. All we have are our windows to the worlds below, places to look down at the lives below. But most Shinigami do not even bother with these. They play games with whatever remains they can find, gambling with the years of their lives. I think many of them play to lose. But then, one of your weeks ago, something wonderful happened. As I walked alone across the plain, I found a new portal that had just opened in the ground. I looked inside, and I saw ponies. Beautiful, wonderful, colorful ponies. Completely untouched by the hands of Shinigami.
Björk started to laugh.
And then, what do you know? In my surprise, I dropped my death note. It fell right down through the portal. And of course, I had to go down after it. But before I could find it, who should pick it up but you? And you have been busy, haven't you? Just as I track the death note down into the big city, you take it away and bring it here, then hide it away. I spent 3 days watching different ponies before I found you, sleeping right under my nose.
He reached down, directly through the wooden desk, and pulled out the death note.
I like the hidden drawer. Very clever. Did you make it yourself?
No, that came with the desk. I guess it belonged to the old librarian. Whoever it was. When I found it, it contained some, personal books. You know, very private literature.
Björk gave her a blank look.
Twilight smiled awkwardly. So, you're okay with me keeping the death note?
Björk scratched his head. Well, I guess I could kill you and take it back.
Twilight shrank back against her bed.
But that would be against the rules. And even if I did, I'd just have to take it back to the Shinigami realm.
His smile grew a little wider.
I guess it couldn't hurt to let you keep it for a while.
Yes! Twilight leapt into the air and began bounding around the room in joy. Yes, 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 yes! Oh, thank you, Björk! Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you! I'll use it well, I promise. I'll make you proud, I really will.
Whatever.
Twilight stopped abruptly mid-leap and tumbled to the floor.
I don't really care how you use it. Just make my stay here enjoyable.
Oh, I will. I'll put on a show like none you've ever seen. I will become justice. I'll be the ruler of a new world.
You ponies are weird.
Björk stretched his wings and began to float upwards.
Only ponies who've touched the death note can see me, by the way. so I'll be staying with you. It's very late. You should be sleeping.
Oh, one more thing, Twilight called. The Death God stopped. You said the DeathNote increases your lifespan when you use it. Does that mean that I've been adding years to my life too?
Nope, that only applies to the Shinigami. The lives you end are simply ended.
One of his eyes rolled downwards.
A lot of lives too. I'm impressed.
I've been busy, Twilight said.
Whatever. As you ponies say, good night.
Buick lifted himself through the ceiling and disappeared. Twilight walked back to the bed with a huge grin on her face. Just then she heard a loud clatter and a scrape of metal against wood. She rushed to the window and stuck her head outside, her jaw dropping at the sight above her. Have you been sleeping on our antenna?
Is that what this is?
Twilight gasped. So you're the one that's been messing with our signal?
Huh?
Get down from there, right now! Dear Princess Luna, I have arrived safely in Ponyville, still with only one head. Currently writing to you from Ponyville Police Station, gathering files on potential volunteers. As per your instructions, I will contact the Dragon Spike as soon as the sun rises and establish communication via Dragonfire. Assuming every pony is willing to help out, as they have been in the past, I should have a sizable force put together by this afternoon. Not as professional as I would have liked, but with teamwork and cooperation, we've kept Ponyville safe in the past. Plus, with the elements of harmony on our side, there's no danger we can't stand against. If it's not an imposition to ask, and if it's not a mystery to you, what did El mean by his efforts tomorrow? Is he planning something we should know about? Your faithful servant, Romana.